The most gruesome episode in Syria's uprising is quickly turning into a PR battle as each side and their allies portion blame for the slaughter in Houla. Just 4 days after the murders of over 100 men, women and children, the media has been flooded with images furthering one or the other agenda. And as RT's Sarah Firth now reports, authenticity has taken a backseat.
When the BBC ran this photo from Iraq, mistakenly claiming it was Syria, it led to some fierce criticisms.
The BBC is like a British bombing club. It always supports NATO's wars, and even though there's no conspiracy, the reporter, whoever wrote this, I'm sure they weren't told to, it's part of a general malaise in the BBC that always calls for intervention and the use of NATO bombardment on developing nations.
But from the very beginning, the Syrian crisis has seemed to be distorted and blurred at every turn and by both sides. Throughout the last months, the world's seen fake video reports and false statements, but this hasn't quelled the sensation-hungry media from jumping the gun on any shocking piece of news coming from the country ravaged by conflict. Amidst calls that the peace plan is now failing, Kofi Annan visited Damascus. In his statement, he said,
"I urge the government to take bold steps to signal that it is serious in its intention to resolve this crisis peacefully, and for everyone involved to help create the right context for a credible political process. And this message of peace is not only for the government, but for everyone, every individual with a gun."
But while many media outlets loudly condemn the regime, there has been little criticism of the open and blatant funding and arming of the Syrian opposition, a move that has served to massively undermine ceasefire attempts. And now the war drums again seem to be beating. John Rees from the Stop the War coalition called this the Benghazi moment, the moment where things are portrayed as being so bad that there's no other option but intervention.
Some of us who've been around long enough will remember the outcry in the Western press and from Western governments over similar occasions in Kosovo. We'll remember the way in which the Saddam Hussein regime was characterised because of its atrocities in Iraq.
The same rhetoric, John says, could lead to even more lives lost.
We saw what happened in Libya with this. Everybody understood that the Gaddafi regime was a horrible dictatorship, but when the West intervened, we ended up with 30,000 dead.
Already, it's estimated that more than 10,000 lives have been lost in the conflict, the death toll continuing to rise, even whilst the UN observers have been in the country. But inside Syria, and amidst the devastation, there is still a hope for a Syria that doesn't involve repression or intervention.
We are completely against arming the uprising, as well as we are against foreign intervention. We declared that very clear, very loud.
The mistake made by the BBC goes to show the real problems when covering the Syrian conflict. But the events of recent weeks have also shown that the mudslinging, finger-pointing and accusations that have been such a mark of the Syrian crisis have only served to move us further away and not closer to the truth. And it's a truth that people in Syria have been paying for with their lives. Sarah Firth, RT, London.